I'd like to call this August 6th Budget Workshop and Special Call Board Meeting to order. Madam Secretary, could you call roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Contreras?
Present.
Ms. Guanajuato-Webb?
Present.
Mr. Mesa?
Here.
Mr. Overfelt?
Present.
Ms. Sanders? Mr. Smith?
Present.
And myself. Sir, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Notice of this meeting has been duly posted and in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Government Code Chapter 551. We will have opening ceremonies, which is item number 2 on the agenda. Again, opening ceremonies with a moment of silence first and then Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please stand?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, and I'd like to thank all the members, all that are here for their efforts, and again, having another budget workshop and another special call board meeting. I know we've had our share of meetings every Monday, so I'm glad to see more members here today. We have a real big task in front of us, and that's the budget. And so this is why the so frequent meetings that we've had, and I'm sure that we will have lots of discussion today. First item that we have is, again, item 3, budget workshop, proposed budget workshop. Yanakani Valdez.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, board members. Thank you again so much for your interaction with the budget this summer. We have had more budget workshops this year. We have had a lot of information to share, and that is my priority, to ensure that we have communicated all the information to support you in making the appropriate decisions. We will present the interactive budget workbook, but I will hand it over to Dr. Rios so that he can introduce it.
Mr. Mesa, members of the board, at this point we've had either one-to-one interactions with the board members to get some coaching, some direction, and try to build a consensus so that we can recommend something that's appropriate. Today I'm going to ask Ms. Valdez to begin with the final page of the workbook, so that she can share with y'all what we believe is going to be a consensus, or what will be a consensus just after reflecting on the conversations we've had and some of the coaching that you all have provided. I will remind everyone that's watching, today's meeting is not to approve the budget. However, we would ask the board to approve the compensation plan that includes a general pay increase and the stipends, so that we can move forward and start building that within our systems to ensure that everyone gets appropriately paid as we have in the past. And this is quite a big task, because for every employee, there's so many things that have to be done. We'll discuss that final page. We'll present that to show what the combined wishes of the board reflect, and then we can take page by page and further discuss. Because again, we're still not approving the budget today, but we would ask for the compensation plan and the stipends to be approved today. So Ms. Valdez, will you begin with that final page?
Yes, sir. The final page starts with revenue. Again, that is the basis of our budget decisions, and we have our revenue calculated at our current tax rate of $1.04, or the tax rate that we're proposing with a TRE, a tax ratification election, of $1.1598. The revenue that we have included in this workbook, based on the tax ratification election, is $93,716,000. This dollar amount is the amount that you will see also on the notice. So I'm referring to it that way when I refer to the notice later on, because it is one of the agenda items. You know where I pulled the amount from. So we're basing our budget on we're basing our notice budget on $93 million, assuming that we have a successful tax ratification election. The majority of our budget, which is approximately 80% of our budget, is between salaries and benefits. Within this workbook, we started off with our base budget of what we approved during 17-18, or what we had in our budget for 17-18 of wages and benefits. This included $66,513,236, plus PPACA mandates at $70,000. We credit our salary account or salary budget for a vacancy float, because we do have vacancies throughout the year, so we do not consume the entire salary budget. And this helps so that we can make sure that we are budgeting appropriately. We also have $3,215,788 included for substitutes, extra duty, and tutorials. Now, in the savings, these are the areas that are included in the different tabs. These are the tabs that I can go to now, sir, or do you want me to keep going here?
Let's just keep going.
Just
so
keep
we
going,
can see
okay.
what the bottom number
What we
looks like
have,
when we go back.
sorry, yes. What we have here is, again, what Dr. Rios discussed as the one-to-one conversations or general consensus. We have savings of approximately $846,320, which consist of reclassifications or reconversions or eliminations of positions.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Oh, yes, sir.
Describe the positions one by one.
Okay, then let me turn, okay. So we have reclassification of GT positions. That equates to $379,050 in savings. Conversion of physical education aides. So those positions were previously teaching positions, and as those positions retired through attrition, we convert them to PE aides. So that's a savings of $85,000. Elimination of 2 cabinet positions. This is a half-year savings, since those positions will stay through half of the year, half of this upcoming year. And then, as we've been monitoring our student-to-teacher ratio, we have been making sure that our positions that we fill are enough to have our elementary campuses at a ratio of 22-to-1. So again, in total, those savings are $846,320. Now, during our budget workshops, we have had the recommendations that we have reviewed, which TASB prepared several general pay increase models. The general pay increase model dollar amount that's included in here reflects the 2% general pay increase. This would be $1,576,081. The following stipends, TASB did a market study for stipends, since stipends were identified as being below the market, and it's been more than 10 years since stipends have been studied in our district. And we're looking at a change to the athletic stipends of $91,800, fine arts stipends of $39,453, academic stipends of $31,658. And then there was new positions that were discussed throughout the budget sessions, which included the communications and multimedia position and the director for risk management and employee benefits. In total, those recommendations are $1,880,236. We also had a workshop for our health insurance allocation, and our consultants, Brown & Brown, presented the status of our health insurance plan and the recommendation for sustainability. We currently have approximately $5,200 that we contribute on an annual basis, or $5,400 that we contribute on an annual basis per employee. With this $1 million allocation, this would bring our annual contribution to almost $6,000. So again, this would be to maintain, to start to have a sustainable health insurance plan. As you know, our prior year health insurance plans, we were in the deficit. We did consume our fund balance. And with these new consultants, this was a recommendation in order for us to continue to invest into our health insurance plan and increase the allocation for employee only. We also have a campus that we staffed with additional positions, which is our Laughlin STEM Magnet School. We're estimating that at $394,597. And there were some stipends that we were previously funding for the last 3 years with our EEIP grant. However, that has ended, and we're bringing those stipends over to general fund, which is the stipends that we offer beginner and intermediate teachers. It's a $2,000 stipend that we offer to beginner and intermediate teachers at the elementary level, the mentor stipend that's offered as well, and then a dual credit stipend that's offered at the secondary level. In total, for salary and benefits, it's $870,537. On the non-salary, for the campuses, the departments, for the campuses, the allocation per student did not change. There was no deductions or reductions to any of the campus budgets. None of the campuses were impacted by any changes, so the campuses were able to maintain their same allotment per student. The departments, as we review some of the one of the tabs, the savings tab, we did make a recommendation to reduce the travel budget, and which is listed down below, but we did make a recommendation to reduce the travel budget and 5% of the supplies and miscellaneous budget. In operations, this includes our utilities, so that's where you see this is one of the largest budgets, but utilities is a large budget for the school district. And under state programs, these are the programs that the state supports us with additional funding or weighted funding for our students, and that's funding that we cannot allocate to other sources within the district. So we do have to maintain that compliance. Our student programs are programs like athletics or fine arts, and again, those programs have where they support the students either through providing them with uniforms, with supplies, with instruments, or the majority of it is related to travel. And this year, this upcoming year, is the first year to pay the debt for the ESCO plan, for our energy savings plan. We do not anticipate savings for the first year. We do anticipate savings for the following year, so that's where you'll see in 2020 this plan will pay for itself. We did take the sustainability plan out of the budget because we have an allocation down below for operations. Since we're requesting a tax ratification election to move our debt service pennies to our M&O tax rate, that means that we would be paying our debt payment out of our maintenance and operation budget. So that is included in here as well. In previous discussions, we have reviewed a construction plan for the district to begin reserves of $1.5 million for future construction projects. Mr. Henge presented an operations and technology plan of over $2.2 million, but again, based on all of the different recommendations, and in order to come into a budget that we could maintain, there were some reductions to that at 1.6 million. And as I mentioned earlier, there were some savings on the non-salary, which was $32,000 for travel. It is not student related, it is department related. And then 5% reduction in supplies and miscellaneous, and this did not impact the campuses. In total, our non-salary is $22,875,675. Total expenditure, projected expenditures for 2019, assuming a tax ratification election, would be $94,746,212. Our variance is just shy of being a balanced budget of $116,245.
Dr. Rios?
To summarize, or I guess I should say bring attention to just two important points. I want to be clear, on the art teachers, that is not one of the projected savings.
Correct.
So we plan on keeping the art teachers in their current positions, and there are 2 current vacancies at the elementary campuses, and based on the conversations that we had with everyone, we have now asked the principals to begin to fill those positions. So the art teachers will not be one of the sources that generates a savings for this year. The other point I wanted to make is, Yanakani, will you highlight the cell that talks about last year's sustainability plan?
720,000.
Right. So that's last year's sustainability plan. This year's sustainability plan is 1.6. That is a sizable increase that we're asking the board to commit. But that's just because we started the sustainability plan last year. There was a lot of areas that we couldn't meet because it wasn't appropriately calculated. We believe that this is about as close as we can get. And we appreciate your support in that area. So I wanted to clarify those 2 things.
And I wanted to kind of keep the board members that might have missed the update in regard to the appraisal review board, that we had not foreseen that $615,000 deficit, which is, we had already counted on it. And so we are having to really put the brakes on different things and kind of think how we are going to work around this, because I think every entity had anticipated getting the full amount in regard of taxes from the windmill farm, the wind farm, Rock Springs Wind Farm, as it is called. So that has completely kind of detoured some of the areas that we were looking at, and so this is why the much anticipated discussion and workshop that we've had, that I think every entity, the county, the city, or the hospital, the school district had counted on that additional revenue. And so this is where we're at this point.
That concludes the presentation for this year's budget. If there's any discussion that any board member would like to have, Mr. Mesa, on any one of the individual tabs for further discussion, we're prepared to present those tabs and answer any questions as best we can.
Sure. And I appreciate the fact that administrations has already looked at their travel and supplies in regard to the reductions that have been made, and of course also the different positions that we're counting on some savings in regard to that. I'll open it up to questions from board members. Mr. Contreras?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mesa and Dr. Rios and Ms. Valdez, appreciate the effort. By any chance, I know that the wind farm is under appeal. Have we spoken to Ms. Sheedy to see if by chance there's any projection on what more or less we're looking at? It's going to be appealed. They're going to go back and forth. hoping that they come to an agreement and hash it out and see how much of the reduction we can recoup. Have we spoken to Ms. Sheedy to see if what she projects, maybe recouping what the ultimate goal of that would be, or the amount, and then for us to look ahead, you know, for every $1 million that, because what was it, 70 million or $75 million that they arbitrarily just cut? Let's say we gain 10 million. You know, what would we gain from it, and what are we looking at? Have we projected, looked ahead by chance?
No, sir, we haven't had those conversations, but what we are planning on doing this week is reaching out and asking the representatives on the appraisal district and Ms. Sheedy, sending out a letter and asking them to get with the attorney, because I don't believe that the $20,000 that they have in their contingency fund for legal fees would be enough to carry this through. So in that letter, we're asking them to get with the attorney and plan out different scenarios and costs, because I think it's important that the entities that are represented on the appraisal district come forth now and provide funds from their budget. I think that when we divide it up 3 ways, depending on our budgets, ours will be the highest, to be able to provide for those legal fees so that we can start working on scenarios and getting some timelines on how we see this. And then, of course, it's important that even though the attorney would be working for the appraisal district, that they keep the entities up to date as to all the proceedings and not just the final decision, so that we can keep you all informed. So we'll be issuing a letter out to the representatives and Ms. Sheedy, asking them to consider that. And then that'll be the next step, to get those scenarios from the attorney. Great.
Yeah, I mean, so that way we can start looking at it and projecting and making plans, you know, for those scenarios. Whichever way it plays out, but $20,000, and that it's nothing. They're going to blow it out in the first 2 or 3 weeks. My second question is, can you give me the history on that particular tab? Well, on the, what was it? Can you scroll up? No, it's actually what I wanted is go down, Ms. Valdez. Further down.
Okay.
Right there. Departments, operations. Can you give me the history in the last 5 years and see what has gone up on those operational costs?
We can go back and look at the budget, because we have the exact figures on the budgets that we presented. I think that we'll wait until Ms. Valdez can provide that in an update here in the next couple of days. But you're going to find that in some of those areas, it has definitely gone down. You're going to see some areas of increase, but where's the utilities, Ms. Valdez? Can you highlight that?
It's within operations.
On the operations, that one, for example,
Yes.
you're going to see that it's gone considerably down. In the past, the district used to run a negative budget. But it was a negative budget because items like that one used to be exaggerated almost over $1 million. And then at the end of the year, you wouldn't spend the money, and you really weren't in a negative budget, but that's just the way it looked. And that's how we ended up with the excess fund balance that we then used for our construction projects. But on that one, you're definitely going to see a decrease. On the other ones, I think it's 5 years history. Is that what you wanted, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll make note of that and provide that as soon as we can.
Great. All right. Thank you.
And just to add to Mr. Contreras' question, it'll be a long, drawn process, and the judge will be the one finally making a decision. When an appeal is filed, it is a long, drawn process that will have to go through the courts. And finally, a judge will make the decision, but no anticipated, like quick process. It's going to be long, drawn out.
Yeah, I think it's something where all entities need to get together and discuss the amount of money they're willing to put into into the kitty because $20,000
Right.
going through this type of appeals real
Exactly.
quick, it's going to go really, really quick.
Exactly. Okay. Mr. Overfelt, questions?
Not at the moment,
No.
sir.
Ms. Webb?
Not at the moment.
Mr. Smith?
Yeah, I got a couple of questions real quick. On, go to the salary increase section again. If you cum that up, that ends up being what, $3.4 million in rough math?
This right here, sir? Or which one? were you-
All of the increases that you're talking.
Oh, okay. 3.4 million. Do you want me to include the savings as well or no?
You can, yeah.
Okay. And so the net change would be 2.5 million.
2.5,
Mhm.
and so with the savings and the increases, our typical year is what, about 2?
Our typical change in salaries and benefits?
Annual,
Annual?
annualized increases in general has been about 2, if I remember right.
It would be close to 2 when we include our health insurance and our general pay increase.
Yeah, so, this is where, okay.
Any other question, Mr. Smith? Was-
One additional comment when you're done.
Did you have an additional question?
I'm good, yeah.
Okay, you go. Dr. Rios?
The additional comment, Ms. Valdez, can you bring us back down to the cell that shows the deficit for this year?
Yes, sir. 116.
Yeah, I wanted to clarify that although that shows a deficit for this year, we hope that by the time that we finally approve the budget, we will be able to appropriately calculate additional savings. For example, right now at the elementary schools, we have a couple of less positions. We've also made some reassignments. So that budget there, or that deficit there, will very easily be overcome. And we'd hope to present just a little bit more savings than the board can then decide if you want to place that money in any one of those other cells, whatever the case may be. So we still have a couple of weeks, and we think that within those 2 weeks, we will be able to present additional funds. Not many, but definitely enough to overcome that small deficit there.
Good. I'm just glad that we did not cut into the campus budgets,
Correct.
as it is, cost of items go up and so forth. So I'm glad administration did not reduce that amount, and I'm grateful for that. Any other questions? Ms. Gonzalez?
How about nothing?
Not right
Later on.
now. Okay, then
You're not.
we'll just go on.
Thank you.
And just to ensure that I've shared all the information, this workbook also includes the change in revenue based on the state funding formula, which is the challenge. It is going to be the challenge that we look at for next year, for our next budgeting year. But next year will also be a legislative session year. So again, this is based on our current state funding formulas. I included the information on how our funding would change or how the funding would be reduced currently. If the state funding formula were to remain the same, we would lose about $3 million in funding in the upcoming year.
So,
Yes, Mr. Overfelt.
go ahead.
Just for my own benefit, can you click on the new position tab?
Oh, yes, sir. Right here.
And so included in the new position under the certified, you're looking at just communication and the director of risk management, right? Those were the two that made up that total?
Yes, sir. Based on different conversations, yes, sir.
Okay. I'm just verifying. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Contreras?
Yeah, going back to the tab, Ms. Valdez,
The total tab?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, go up a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Would you be able to send me also the history on that INS debt payment, that 4,100,000?
Yes.
That, and then technically, we still have some wiggle room if need be on that 1.5 for construction plans because that's future construction. Am I correct? So we can overcome that 116 right off the bat with the construction plan because that's future construction. That's not committed yet. So we can overcome it and knock off of that.
Yes, sir. We don't believe it'll be necessary, but we definitely could do that. Yes,
I mean,
sir.
push comes to shove, that goes.
Yes. Well,
Okay.
it's,
Well,
it's
yeah,
y'all's
we can
decision.
reduce. Yeah, we just look ahead. Okay.
Yeah, Nakani, you
Yes,
will
sir.
be going over the new positions as well, a little bit further on.
If you're ready, I can go through each tab, yes.
Okay, go to that one right now, if you could.
To new
please.
positions?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Okay. So on the new positions, we had presented different positions that were requested throughout the year. And in total, it was 35 positions, and they totaled to $1,872,692, which include the communication and multimedia technician position, the director of risk management and benefits, teaching or additional teaching positions at the secondary level, which is at Del Rio High School and blended, 14 special education teachers as a co-teaching and learning environment for our special education program, 7 special education aides to support special education instruction in the classroom, a secretary for the band, an LVN for the Del Rio High School CTE facility, and 8 peace officers.
Okay. This is where, again, these are anticipated new positions. I'm fine with the risk manager, for example, and the other one, the technology person. But I think the other areas, I think there's wiggle room, as Mr. Contreras mentioned, in regard to, let's say, the special ed teachers, and then also in regard to the security officers. I have polled several districts whenever I attend my TASB meetings, and these are the ones that have enrollment above ours, up to 15,000 students enrollment, and they currently don't have security officers at the elementary. Now, they might have a program where there is an officer, say from the reserve officers, sheriff department, but as far as district-wide, they don't have officers in the elementary yet. I know that's something that they anticipate. I think all districts would love to have one. But I think in regard to that 8 officer positions, we could do something creative in the sense of having 4 and possibly spend half a day at one campus, half a day at another campus. The visibility would be there. But I also think that there could be other areas where we talk about the doors locking from the inside and possibly security cameras, possibly metal detectors, some of the larger elementaries. But there's an area there that we can work with, and it seems like we can go item by item on those new positions with board members for discussion. If we could start with, Dr. Ruiz, you want to mention something?
Well, I wanted to wait till you finish because I did want to address the special education and the security piece,
Okay.
if we could, but I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, then we can do this. If you want to go ahead and go through the whole thing, and then we'll come back to it.
Well, before we leave this tab, though, I think that in visiting with the board members, I think the consensus from everyone is that y'all would like to do more with security, but not necessarily in terms of personnel is what I heard from a lot of y'all. So what that looks like for us, when we do the final amendments at the end of the month, we're definitely going to ask the board to allocate some money that was left over from previously dedicated items to fix all of the doors and turn them around so that they lock from the inside. That's a simple piece. We've also had discussions with board members. I know that Board Member Webb even provided a plan on securing the envelope at the high school in some particular areas. So when we are able to provide the savings for y'all, we could also have a discussion of just allocating some money to security, and then we would come up with a plan on how much we could do with that money for this year. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in terms of personnel, but I think that as we're able to generate those savings here in the next couple of weeks, whether it's $300,000 or $250,000, whatever the case may be, we can have a discussion on how y'all want to allocate that money. The other piece on the special education aides, we had, or teachers, we had a whole think tank about what additional services we needed to provide for our special education students. What we started doing last week was looking at the master schedules of our secondary campuses very closely and identifying areas where we could free up personnel, currently assigned personnel to campuses, whether it be by increasing the PE numbers or just being efficient with them, certain periods and electives that we can then turn those into academic support for special ed positions. So we're aware that there probably aren't 21 certified special education teachers waiting to be hired in Del Rio, Texas, and B, there isn't enough money, but we're absolutely prepared to do as much as we can within the existing personnel to provide increased services to that department. Unfortunately, that won't be ready by the time we approve the final budget, but we've already had significant findings as we've reviewed the master schedules to know that we will be able to provide some relief to the special education department. I just can't define it for you right now because we have to be sure what students showed up to register. So that's a positive outlook, at least for the area of security and the area of special education services.
Great. Good. Thank you. Questions?
I just had a
Ms.
question,
Wood?
Mr. Mesa. In looking at all the new vacancies, and if we are in a deficit right now, why are we looking at new positions at this time? I can understand the special ed individuals, but when we look at the technology aspect of it, how is that going to help the district if
there's a couple things. The easy one is the risk management. So if we look at the amount of money that we dedicate to risk management, it's well over $10 million, I believe, with this last amount that the board's going to dedicate. We don't want that money to continue to increase. We want that money to decrease. And the investment of a risk management director will help us manage that so that we stay very solvent in that area. That investment will generate immediate savings even this coming year. That's our hope. On the multimedia tech, for this past year, we've produced a whole lot of videos, whether it be on hand washing, items not to bring to school, the TRE election, just a significant amount of videos, and we've been paying for those videos on a contracted basis. So it's money that we've already been spending, at least partially. I don't want to say 70% of it, but definitely an amount. And we know that that's just the way that people communicate these days via that technology. And we want to definitely keep our community informed as to what we're doing, because very few people will read the board minutes or even tune into the board meetings live. But all of this that we're doing is just something that we set out to do 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and we've been improving upon it. That's just how people communicate these days, or at least the majority, and we are already spending some of that money.
Thank you.
Okay. We can go on.
Mr. Mesa,
Mr. Mesa.
Oh, question.
I
I'm
have a
sorry.
question
Ms. Wells.
as it relates to security, but I don't know if it's something that can be said in open session there because it involves, I don't know what can be discussed in open versus closed as it involves our security and our response to events.
Mr. Overfeld, 2 weeks from today, we're going to have a presentation in closed session on security so that we can discuss everything openly. We can discuss whatever the board would like. There isn't anything that is classified that we can't discuss, but just to not expose any vulnerabilities of the district, those are the things that we want to keep in closed session. So if it isn't any of that, I would just encourage you to speak freely, unless it's something that's going to expose something that we're going to deal with.
I think it falls under that category, so I'll have to wait
Okay.
because I don't want to put anything at risk. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Look, we'll go on.
Just to recap on the calendar, our deadline to approve a tax ratification election is August 20th, and that's why we have the approval or adoption of the budget and the tax rate, the public hearing on August 20th. So that's why today's meeting was set in order to present to y'all the notice, and that's where I was referencing the revenue that is included in this workbook is what is included in the notice, and the tax rates that will be included in the notice. As you shared earlier, Mr. Mesa, there was a decrease of $615,000 that we did not expect, and this was because of the change between our preliminary and certified values, which was the decrease in values on the wind farm. When we received the decrease in revenue is when we started working on additional funding, savings opportunities, and that's when travel for non-student travel was identified, reduction in expenditures non-campus was identified of $210,000, and monitoring student-to-teacher ratios was also identified as another opportunity of $250,000. But our savings from the start of our budget workshops had included the reclassification of GT teachers. We have, over the last 2 years, transitioned from our physical education teacher positions to physical education aides. And then we received notification of retirement from 2 of our cabinet positions. Throughout the budget process this summer, the conversation was made about the art teachers. However, again, based on recent conversations, we're not going to move forward with that. So we do have that as the only no on this tab, which is what was reflected on the summary tab. Bless you, sir. The general pay increase, TASB provided 6 models from 1.6% to 2.8%. The 2% model includes a $43,000 starting salary for teachers. And this is a 2% general pay increase, and it has adjustments also to the years of 1 to 14 for teachers. Again, this is where TASB identified where this is where we are below market on our starting pay for teachers. And with the 2% general pay increase, the rest of our salary ranges or salary models, which are for administrative professional, paraprofessional, and auxiliary, those models are adjusted to the market already, or what was presented by TASB is a market adjustment, and employees within that range will receive an average general pay increase of 2%. There was some employees that were below 90% of the market, so there's adjustments to be made there. And then there were some employees that that had fallen below the minimum paid range for that salary schedule. So again, TASB brought everybody in to be within the ranges of the salary schedules for the administrative professional, for the paraprofessionals, and for auxiliary. You can see the same types of adjustments on all three classification of salary schedules. And for the 2% model, which is the one that was discussed, is $1,576,081. The general pay increase itself is $1,194,000, but it includes adjustments of $381,000. So again, as we've been with TASB, I believe the first year we worked with TASB, the first year we implemented a TASB salary study, it was over $2 million, and the majority of that was adjustments. So again, as TASB mentioned, as we progress through staying on market, we will have less and less adjustments that need to be made because we will have more of our employees at a market range. Any questions on the general pay increase?
I do. Yeah,
Yes,
Makani, did that include the cafeteria workers?
Well, yes, sir. It includes all employees. The cafeteria workers would be under auxiliary.
Okay. Did I miss that tab there? Where it says auxiliary, is it listed there?
Right here? The different salary models are identified on each of the general pay increase sections.
Right, under the auxiliary though. Is it in one of those bullets there?
As a separate tab? No, sir.
Oh, okay.
That's what was sent.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Oh, okay. That's what
But it
was
does
sent.
include that, okay.
Oh, yes, sir. This includes all of the district employees.
Okay.
And this is just general pay increase. There's a separate tab for stipends.
Okay, thank you.
On the removal of the salary cap, as TASB has presented, as our salary ranges every year adjust to the market, more employees will start to fall within our salary ranges. And as you can see, based on the models that TASB presented, the salary ranges that we have for teachers, based on the staff that we have at this point, we would have no teachers that exceed the maximum salary schedule on the teacher pay scale. We would have 9 employees that exceed on the administrative professional, 38 that exceed on the paraprofessional, and 6 that exceed on the auxiliary. So again, we started off with approximately 90 employees that exceeded when we started implementing the TASB salary model and had our max ranges, and we're down to 53. So again, our ranges do adjust every year, and some employees do start to fall within the ranges, and we have employees who also promote into ranges that have higher salary ranges. So again, the salary study or the salary ranges that we have are to maintain our district at a market range, but they are, and to place our jobs at a correct pay structure, but there are to build and align a competitive job market. So that gives the employees initiatives to promote to other positions in order to be able to obtain those salary ranges that they desire. And that is not included on the summary to change the salary cap. Any questions?
I just want to add something here.
Yes, sir.
Just to kind of remind the board members, we had an enormous amount of teachers that left the profession this past year, and I think it has to be due to the salary cap. When you look at the total amount that it would cost to remove the maximum salary cap, would be $54,000, which is a very small amount. I think where most districts are trying to retain their experienced teachers, we need to do something in that effort to maintain our qualified teachers and our experienced teachers, because normally you don't see 80 brand new teachers in one school year. Average would be somewhere around 30. And so I saw that it's excessive, And for the cost of removing the salary cap, I don't think it's excessive. It's a small amount that we could somehow compensate in other areas to save our quality, experienced teachers, to retain our teachers in our district. And that's just a comment from me.
And Mr. Mesa, oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Contreras?
I'm with you, Mr. Mesa. Like I said, I think that's one of the things that I can definitely see. I do want to have a question is, what does the 2% mean to somebody that's capped?
That depends on their salary range, but the 2% to somebody that's capped, to these individuals, for instance, these 53 individuals, if they are capped, we have a longevity stipend that's at 0.47% or 0.49%. I'd have to look it up. And that's the percentage that we have had the last 2 years.
So the 2% doesn't do anything?
No, sir. The 2% is a general pay increase for employees that are within the salary range. So the employees within the salary range have not exceeded market value.
I can tell you because I looked at it and it was somewhere around $250.
Yeah.
From 1 year to the next.
So definitely I would, at this point, based on that, I think it'd be, just in my opinion, remove that cap, 54,000. Just comment.
And if I may clarify, Mr. Mesa, the TASB model or the salary schedule that we have for teachers, the range maximum is 64,700. We do not have any teachers that exceed the range maximum. So there would be no teachers capped.
It would be more the paraprofessional.
Well,
Yes.
they have exceeded it since prior. Again, as their market values exceeded. Our old salary schedules really exceeded the market. And we had that one example that we always refer to where we have some paras that make more than teachers.
I would, because I know in regard to classroom paraprofessionals, that would not be the case. It has to be other auxiliary personnel. Yes?
I can provide you the list. I do not have it in front of me.
Okay. Any other question from board members?
No, I just want to add that I am in agreement that we remove the salary cap, because I have also heard the same situation where people have left, whether it's an instructional aide, whether it's someone that, like Mr. Contreras mentioned, might not necessarily be a teacher, but the reason that they're stating that they're leaving is because they're capped and they have nowhere else to go. They're not getting anything, any other benefits. Yet we are losing some of the experiences that we need within our district.
Any other comment?
I thought we were going to remove the salary cap, but we're not. I thought that
We're
was
still
part
in
of the plan.
discussion.
Remove the salary cap, that's what I thought.
I guess I'm not following. I'm lost a little bit. We got to have salary caps, so, yeah, you do. Any grade's got a cap to it.
I'm sorry, Mr. Smith. But
I'm lost at saying that we don't have a cap on a salary. I'm lost at that.
well, we do have a salary cap in place right now.
I know, but what I think we're saying is that we're going to remove
Well,
that.
remove it, as we said.
Yes.
And so that means that it's just an endless number out there.
There's a number attached to different categories. I don't think we have a single teacher reset, right? That at this point is mostly a paraprofessional.
Based on this comparison that was done, that's correct. The teacher, and if y'all can, that way y'all can have an example in front of you. Again, the reason we adopted for TASB to be our third party administrator or our consultants for salary studies is for our district to make sure to maintain market rates. If you look at the packet that you have in front of you, last year or in 17, 18, In 17-18, the new hire salary was $41,550. So that was the starting range for a teacher. The max range was $60,680. Based on market studies and the salary models that were provided, the new range that we're looking at now is $43,000 to $64,700 if you look at the note down below. So our ranges change with the market. This $64,700 is the cap. However, currently we do not have any employees, any teachers that would exceed that.
This year.
Mr. Contreras?
Yes.
No, Dr. Rios, you want to go ahead and explain that a little bit?
I just want to clarify. We don't have any teachers exceeding the cap this year, but it would be a mistake to assume that next year we would have a teacher exceed it, because next year TASB comes back and they again look at the market. So obviously the market's always going to go up. And so next year as the market goes up, that salary range increases, so they automatically get an adjustment because that market increased. But if you don't have a salary cap, then not only are you paying above the market, you're paying above the market in all areas. Right now it doesn't look like a lot, but if we were to look at this 3 years ago, and we look at how many people were above the cap, we think that the problem is fixed now, at least in the area of the teachers. And that won't continue to be an issue because we're within market. Obviously, there's the paraprofessionals and the auxiliary. There was a lot more people included in that. So it will continue for another year or two until we get that within market. But that doesn't mean that market cap is fixed. It continues to increase, and people will continue to see salary adjustments just within the market. Another thing to consider as we try to recruit teachers, if we look at the salary increases that we've been able to provide to first-year teachers, and of course adjust everybody on down the line, they've been significant. But to stay within that 80% budget, we do have to employ things like salary caps. But again, I want to be clear. Our job is to provide the information and to make recommendations to the board. But at the end of the day, it is the wishes of the board. We just don't recommend it.
I understand. Let the record show that Mrs. Sanders is in attendance, 656. Welcome, Mrs. Sanders.
Oh, thank you.
In regard to, I know Dr. Rios mentioned the salary study, and this is why we have it every year. I think the biggest indicator was the fact that we lost 80 new teachers, and the fact that, when you have from year to year, even if we propose a 2%, these teachers that are capped will be getting an amount close to $250, and to me that is not justifiable. I think there has to be an increase, from year to year.
And sir, if you look at this schedule, the teachers you can see that the general pay increase shows a change of $1,100 all the way across the board.
I think that the only thing that I see wrong, are the years up here.
Which one, sir?
Is that on the left-hand side? It's supposed to be 17, 18?
Yes, sir. Yes, it should have 17, 18 at the beginning instead of 18, 19, but we're showing you the change from 17, 18 to 18, 19. My
Okay,
apologies.
Yes, I saw that. Any other further discussion?
Let me ask something from HR. What's the reasons for these 80? When you do your exit meeting, what is your reasons that teachers are leaving?
We've been studying the data, and I don't have the exact percentage, but most of the employees that leave are due for relocation.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Rios?
Not only are a lot of the vacancies due to relocation, If we consider the number of vacancies from last year to this year, the number is significantly lower. Now, granted, we did reassign the GT teachers, but that only accounts for 7 teachers. Last year, when we had the new teacher training, which happened today, last year we had probably 72 individuals. Today, I believe there was 35. So I think that the ship will right itself, and we're definitely headed in that direction. I don't know what else I can say in that area, but we the bleeding stopped. We're in a good position personnel wise. We just need to maintain it.
Any other discussion? Mr. Smith, any other questions?
No, I'm good. Yeah.
Okay. We can go on.
I'm so sorry.
That's fine.
For the stipends, TASB conducted a stipend study. Again, they objectively examined the competitive job market and evaluated the key benchmark stipend positions. And these positions, they then provided a stipend salary study, which they presented to the board on those key benchmark positions. And what we did here was we put together a summary of the proposed changes for athletics, fine arts, and academic stipends. And as we've mentioned before, it's been more than 10 years, maybe more than 15 years, that the athletics, fine arts stipends have been studied and compared to the market for any change. So we can see here that we're recommending for athletics, it's a recommendation of an increase of $91,800 to the athletic stipends. And for fine arts, it's an increase of $39,453. For academic, it's an increase of $31,658. Now, this is a summary that you were provided. However, your packets here include what the schedules actually look like. So again, you have what the schedules actually look like. You have the red line schedule, and you have the final schedule here of what they actually look like, which are the models that, or the schedules that we post on our website. So again, this would be the stipends that are included in the interactive budget workbook that were part of the TASB stipend study, and these were in order to provide that market value competitive salary or stipend salary to the employees when that has not been reviewed in more than 10 years.
So, Yanagani, anything that's highlighted in red, that is the old amount?
Yes.
That was 17, 18?
So repeat that one more time. So when was these stipends haven't been visited in how long?
Over 10 years. I think I heard the other day 15 years, but I know I've been here for 9 years and they have not been changed.
Mr. Smith, if I may add, not only have the stipends not been revisited, there's 2 points that I would add. The last group of individuals that we said we were going to address when we were working with TASB to bring everything to market were the stipends. So that was part of the plan when we launched this project 5 years ago. The other item that I'll mention that probably Mr. Mesa is the only one that might remember is about 15 years ago, there was an interim superintendent that recommended to the board that the stipends for the coaches be left alone, and that the extra days, the coaches were getting paid extra days at their daily rate. And to create some savings, they reverted from paying the extra days at their daily rate to a flat rate of $150. So maybe if you were a first-year teacher coaching, that may not have had a significant reduction, but you never saw any increases. And if you were a veteran teacher who had been coaching, you saw a huge reduction. But that was done to save money, and that was about 15 years ago. So not only have they not been increased, they were decreased at that point. And this is what was the plan, to address them last, and that's at the point we're at. And that's why we're bringing the athletic stipends
And fine arts.
for your consideration.
Okay.
It seemed like in the past, we addressed, just bits and pieces. It was never the complete job market comparison.
That's correct, sir.
Yes, that's correct, sir. I do recall in the past, they would either add another, I say another individual, but another count to that stipend so that another person could receive that stipend, or they would break the stipend in half so that two people, or they would divide the days. I mean, they would work within what they had, but nothing in comparison to the market.
Right. Correct. Discussion? Questions?
I have a question.
Mrs. Webb?
On the handout that you gave us, it indicates 1718. For example, I'm looking at one coach that had 6,930 in 1718. Then in 1819, that particular person had 8,730. So is that not an increase?
Can we? What page are we looking at? What's the
It's
title?
one of the handouts that you gave us today. It's the one that has the column in red.
What's the title?
Athletic stipends.
Okay, let me get to that page. And what's the actual stipend?
It was, the one I was just looking at was 6,930.
The position, the stipend position?
Oh, the position, head coach, cross country.
Cross country head coach.
I'm just curious because you have some figures in red, and that you're stating that it hasn't been looked at in over 10 years. But then when you look across to 1819, there is an increase in the stipend, so I'm confused.
I'm sorry.
So-
Yes, ma'am. You're looking at 6,930, which is what they got
Correct.
paid in 1718.
Correct.
So we're recommending 8,730 for this coming year. So the column that you see is where it says stipend 1819, that's the recommendation for this year. But if you look down the line on all of them, they're all marked out in red, and they're showing the increase on the left-hand side. Can I walk over just to make sure we're looking at the same thing, ma'am?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've got it right here. Right there. Mhm.
These are all the we paid this year.
Okay.
So they're all marked out.
Okay.
This is what we're recommending
Okay.
for this coming year.
All right.
You okay?
Yeah, then I have another question.
Okay.
If we have one sponsor that had a stipend of 880, and now we're recommending that that particular person get a stipend of 4,815, how is that justifiable?
And if you could tell me which
That
one.
would be under cheerleader sponsor middle school.
Yes, ma'am. Here's the reality, and I think you would see the same adjustment or similar adjustment at the high school. In the past, individuals who have been sponsoring, whether it be cheerleading and dance, they've gotten a stipend that is nowhere equal to stipends that their counterparts receive. Whether you're sponsoring cheerleader or sponsoring dance, you're putting in the same amount of hours, making the same out-of-town trips as, let's say, a football coach is. And in reality, you're doing a lot more, because if you're a cheerleader, a cheer sponsor, not only are you going to all the football events, you're going to some basketball, you're going to some baseball, and everywhere else that you're asked, to make a special appearance. I just want to recommend what is fair, and there is a reason why we don't have a middle school cheer sponsor right now, because it's a whole lot of work, and we're trying to recruit somebody. It's just a whole lot of work, and I personally think that it is. I personally think it's a Title IX violation when you pay a traditionally male counterpart, although there are plenty of females that make similar stipends in other sports, but predominantly males, pay them more for the same time. So cheerleading stipends and drill team stipends,
bells,
you are going to see those increase, but that's only to compensate them adequately for the time that they're spending, because sponsors in those areas work a lot more hours than sponsors in the athletics, just because they cover so many more events. And that's why we're doing it, ma'am.
I mean, I just want equity for everybody. When I see somebody getting 4,000 versus somebody that's getting 2, or some that aren't getting any increase at all, because there's some in here that aren't getting any increase based on what they had last year. So I don't really see a whole lot of equity. That's why.
And you're correct, ma'am, that there isn't, the stipend increases may not be equal, but our job or our goal is to provide equity in compensation. And there hasn't been equity for a long time. And the coaches that are not receiving increases, which there are a few, that's because market-wise they were already there. And this doesn't reflect any wishes for any one individual to receive any extra adjustments. It reflects an effort to bring everybody within market.
And one more comment. I mean, I've seen the band practicing out there, 114 degrees. I've seen the track kids running out there in 114 degrees. And yes, I know that the coaches and their sponsors are out there with them. And at the same time that we're looking at balancing a budget, we have to be very cognizant of the fact of what we are doing and what we are looking at. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Mesa.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Again, we have lots of needs, and we don't have enough funding. Again, with the anticipated amount that we were going to get, I think that is one of the areas that, you know, we're looking with a magnifying glass and trying to make sure that I know it's beneficial, it's needed, because it hasn't been done in 10 years. The only thing is we're trying to stretch the dollar to try to get as much as we can, and so this is why so much discussion, so many meetings that we've had, and it's a very hard job. I know that, as I mentioned, stipends have been addressed before, you know, single item at a time, and I remember at one point where we did not have enough speech pathologists, for example, and so they were overloaded with a number of students, and so a stipend was proposed for a few years until we could find some more certified language pathologists. And so as far as stipends compared to other districts, we had not done the salary study in regard to stipends. It has been done. There is a need, and we're trying to justify, you know, the increases here. They're substantial. As Mrs. Webb mentioned, one of them, just the cheerleading sponsor, for example, jumped from $800 to $4,800. And so those are significant jumps, and that it hadn't been done in 10 years. So that's why. Any other questions from board members?
I just want to make sure that I'm understanding correctly. What you're trying to do on your stipends is basically tied to time invested. And so those that have been investing the time and weren't getting paid, you're trying to get them on the big deltas, get those more paid for the time invested.
Yes, sir. That's on those types that you see significant increases, absolutely. And then overall, which is the majority of them, is just to bring them to market.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. I just want to be clear.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions, discussion? Ms. Sanders?
No, sir. I was able to communicate with Anna Connie and keep up on the string. So, no,
okay, good. Anybody else?
I just want to make a comment in the essence of equitability and fairness. I know there's coaches there that have a 2-season sport. They're assistant coaches. They get paid fairly the same as any assistant coach. And if they do work both seasons for that sport, they get paid, compensated fairly for working both seasons. You know, because I know that there's coaches there that have participate, they're assistant coaches for 2 season sport, one in the fall and one in the spring, and they're not compensated equally. So for those coaches to be compensated equally as an assistant coach, and if and when they work both seasons, they get compensated fairly and equally as all the rest.
Okay.
Okay. Now, we have already discussed the new positions, but I don't know if there was any additional questions there.
Board members, any questions in regard to new positions?
No? Okay.
This is where we have some wiggle room here. Try to be creative and try to meet as many of the needs that are crucial.
Can you go back?
To stipends?
Get back to the original tab, the overview tab. I guess.
Oh, yeah, the summary tab? Yes, sir.
Yeah, go to that salary
Right here, this.
right there. So you've got you've already got that adjusted in here, right?
Yes,
so
sir.
You got. But you don't have the Laughlin positions tied into that list because they're already approved.
Right, yes, we didn't include them as part of a recommendation because we have moved forward with those, yes.
Okay, so you got this 141, how does it tie to that 141, 243, how does that tie to the new position tab?
Oh, right over here, it's these 2 positions, which are communication and multimedia technician and the director of risk management and benefits.
Okay, so you've already taken the others out then?
Based on conversations, yes.
Yeah, got it. Okay, got it. I'm just making sure that I'm clear.
Okay. And for the substitutes, we also asked TASB to provide a market group study. They did provide a market median, and currently our long-term rates are within 90% or above of the market median, and our short-term rates are close to 80% of the market median. However, in reviewing all of the substitute information, reviewing the $1.3 million budget, I proposed to Dr. Rose that we'd like to monitor this upcoming year and identify any areas of opportunities so that in the upcoming year we could use those areas of opportunities of any possible either misuse of the substitute request for substitute request budget, and that way we could use those opportunities or savings and that budget to then hopefully propose a change in the rate in the upcoming year.
Okay, that the 1.3, that's how much we
currently
that we're currently spending,
Mm-hmm.
and we believe that that's an overspend because of attendance issues that we've talked about, right?
Right.
That's the root of it, right?
These are teaching position substitutes. I mean, not.
Say that again.
These are employee absences, not student-related absences.
I get it.
Correct.
I get it, but we've talked many times that's been an abnormally high number,
Yeah,
right?
it's increasing.
Teacher attendance.
It used to be in the past 1.2, and now it's 1.3, and it continues growing.
And it keeps increasing.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? I know we'd all like to see increases in all areas, and it's very difficult to look at that and say, we haven't updated that in some time as well, but we only have so much money, and we understand those needs as well. Any other comments, questions? Okay.
So again, in summary, each of the tabs we've reviewed is the information that's reflected on the summary tab. And I know we're focusing on the column that's related to the tax ratification election revenues, but I know that's what we are hoping for, to have a successful tax ratification election. And as we mentioned earlier, with the savings we've discussed, with the recommendations, which included 2% general pay increase, and of course a tax ratification election, we're currently at a very close to a balanced budget, just shy by $116,000.
So that would include, this would include the 2%, and that would include the stipends
Yes, sir.
and keeping the subsidies at current rate,
Yes, sir.
not removing the salary cap, or
Not removing the salary cap, that's right here. There's no dollar amount there. No change to the substitute budget. The two positions that we had previously mentioned, which is communication and multimedia technician and director of risk management and benefits. The stipends for academics, fine arts, and athletics. A 2% general pay increase. And the savings that we had previously discussed, which included the reclassification of GT teachers, no change to the art program, continuing with the conversion of physical education aides, elimination of cabinet positions, and monitoring our student-to-teacher ratios.
I think the only concern that I have is, again, removing that salary cap, which, this is my opinion. It would not take a whole lot. Again, as I mentioned, there were some, and I think, Mrs. Sanders, I think you were aware that some teachers were getting, an increase up to $250.
Yeah.
These were the ones that were capped. And I do not see that is justifiable, a $250 increase from one year to the next. But that's my opinion.
I agree.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Smith?
Tied to the elimination of the cabinet positions.
Yes, sir.
The redistribution of those responsibilities, how's that designed?
The redistribution of responsibilities and with the salary cap,
No, I'm not talking about the
Cabinet
I'm
positions.
just talking about the elimination of the positions.
oh, yes, sir, okay. A couple of things that we've done. I've taken over the supervision of the principals. And Dr. Garza has taken over student services, which was Dr. McNamara's previous assignment. When Dr. Garza retires, then that job of student services is going to fall under one of the cabinet members. It's either going to be human resources or operations. I have a semester to figure that out.
Okay, sorry for putting you on the spot. That's specific.
No, it's not a surprise to them. We've had these discussions. And like I said, we've already started working with the principals, and it'll work. It'll work.
But if I may add, when Dr. Mack announced her retirement, the redistribution started at that time, was when transportation and student services and food services. So we've been transitioning throughout.
On average right now, how many hours a day or a week does a cabinet member put in?
Well, yesterday was Sunday, and Ida Gomez was here, Ida Garcia was here, Jorge Garza was here, and I was here. I was here from 2 o'clock to 11 o'clock at night yesterday. And that's 9 hours on a Sunday is not typical, but usually 5 hours is typical for all of us to work on a Sunday. And on a daily basis, it's 12 to 14-hour day always.
Question, Mrs. Webb?
Mr. Smith, but that's also typical of all your administrators on the campuses, because a lot of your principals on the campuses are there by 7:30, before 8 o'clock, before the students come in. They don't leave at 4 or 5. Sometimes they have activities and events after school, and they don't leave the campus until about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. And that's even some of your high school teachers as well. So I think that what central office is doing and what Dr. Rios and his cabinet is doing is basically following or leading the district into what everybody else is already doing. So I just thought I would add that in there.
Any other discussion, questions? Then I think we're done with the budget workshop.
Can I just have a closing comment? I know that there's been discussions about security and there's been discussions about the cap. But today we're only talking about, at least the recommendation, by approving what you're approving today doesn't mean that you're not approving everything else. I mean, that'll come in 2 weeks. So there's still, again, we'll generate more savings and we can have discussions on how y'all want to coach us and direct us on how to invest those resources. But when we come back from closed session, or maybe even before we go in closed session, I have to look at the meeting, the agenda, we're only talking about the 2% general increase and the stipends. That's going to be the recommendation related to what we reviewed today.
And the notice includes our tax rate so that we can move forward with the steps needed for the tax ratification election.
Okay, great.
Okay, just to be clear on that piece. So if you, on here, right, what we talked about a minute ago was you've got all of those stipends, right? So scroll that, right? Capture that there somehow. Capture what you're going to ask to be approved here.
Oh, yes, sir. Okay, so we are...
Just so that we're clear on...
Yes, sir. Well, definitely.
Can you just highlight it in yellow and highlight it in light blue, ma'am?
Okay. The packet that you have in front of you, I don't know if you can see this color on the screen, but it will include the general pay increase for all employees at 2%. So that's the packet that you have in front of you, and that's the models, schedules that you have in front of you as well.
Yep.
We have the athletic stipend schedule. We have the fine art schedule. We have the academic schedule included in here as well. And we have, within these schedules, we have changes. For instance, if you look at the teacher stipends, if you look at the teacher stipends, you see a lot of red changes. Those are the removals of the EEIP stipends. So you don't see them here as a credit, but I should highlight this one in blue as well because we're including them here, the EEIP stipends that we're adding onto the general fund.
Okay,
so those are the items.
So cume that up, and that's what, from
yes,
a
sir.
dollar standpoint, that's what we're talking about, right?
Yes, sir.
The discussion on new positions continues.
Well, this is the change. This is a cumulative change that we're discussing, so it's $1,881,000. Because the stipend schedules, the stipends themselves include all, the stipend schedules include all of the stipends, but here we're just discussing the changes.
It's the same thing for the salaries. I mean, the
Yes,
salaries
but
up,
that's
so,
where I was like, I just
yeah.
want to make sure I'm just,
He gets
this is, okay, sorry.
And Mr. Mesa, you are correct, sir. Everything else continues for 2 more weeks, and that's when we'll discuss everything
Yes,
else.
the new teacher, or new positions, and then
Yes.
salary caps. Questions, sir, Mr. Contreras?
I just want to, I guess, lobby for those 2 new positions, which specifically the risk management. Once again, I mean, that is a position I think that we saw where we lost some money last year from it. And I think if we get the right person, could actually save us money throughout the future. And getting the right person there is essential for the district looking forward, along with the IT. You know, keeping up at that stage, I think we need those two. It's just a necessity in today's day and age.
Thank you for those comments, Mr. Contreras. And I feel the same way in regard to health insurance. It has been a very difficult battle, you know, to keep it solvent. I know at one point in time we're going to have to ask employees to pay their share if we are not able to extend that dollar amount. But I still have questions in regard to expenditures that happened last year that I still don't have questions or answers for. And that is for example, the stop loss, the huge amount that we were charged by different agencies, I guess you can call. And I don't have an answer for yet, but I agree with Mr. Contreras. Whoever that person is going to have to be knowledgeable about, you know, the billing system in regard to, you know, costs for certain procedures and so forth, to help us with that insurance that is so complicated for us as board members to understand. But I think we have to do everything that we can to be able to save money in that area. And so I question that position from the beginning, but I think it's justifiable that we do need a person to look at that on a daily basis. Any other discussion? Then we will close this portion of our meeting in regard to the budget and go on to our regular meeting.
Thank you.
At this point. Thank you, Ms. Yanko. First item that we have on the agenda is item 13, Business and Finance. First item is a consideration to approve purchase order over $25,000 with the Texas Association of School Boards, TASB, in the amount of $860,174. Funding source, general fund, for property, equipment, general liability, professional legal liability, fleet, and workers' compensation. Yanakani Valdez.
Thank you, sir. This is our risk management fund that we have with TASB. Included in your board packet was the contribution and coverage summary, which includes our deductible levels and what the contribution cost for each of those insurances. There was an increase to our total cost, which is an increase of $112,412. We had mentioned it at a previous workshop where we did anticipate that there would be an increase. We received these documents at the end of July, I believe, and the total increase did come out to $112,412. We received, I believe it was close to about $6 to $7 million in hail damage insurance from TASB, and I'm sure a lot of insurance companies experienced the loss, and a lot of districts are seeing an increase in their insurance cost.
Questions, discussion? Again, you have the amounts broken down by category. There being no questions or discussion, we will ask for the recommendation.
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the payment of the purchase order over $25,000 to Texas Association of School Boards in the amount of $860,174.
You have heard the recommendation. I will ask for a motion for approval. Mr. Smith, seconded by Mrs. Webb. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item 13B, consideration to approve 2018-2019 district compensation plans. Aide Garcia.
Mr. President, if it's okay, it's the items that we discussed. If it's okay, we talked about it. I'll read the recommendation. The memo shows Yanakani's and my name on it, and the board agenda item shows that it has a name on it. So let me just read it, if that's okay.
There's just two corrections, sir, that I found that we'd like to mention.
Okay, go ahead.
On the administrative professional pay plan, we just updated the job description for coordinator for maintenance, so we want to change that to operation coordinator. And then also, under the licensed specialist in school psychology, it should be listed as coordinator for licensed specialist in school psychology. And that's under the pay grade 4. Coordinator.
Can you tell me the page number so we can flip to that?
There's no page number, sir, but it would be the 3rd page, and it's titled Administrative Professional Pay Plan. Oh, and it's not in your packet, it's this new.
Right, I have it here.
Yes.
Okay, so for the
Pay grade 1, it would be coordinator operations instead of coordinator maintenance.
okay, so we're only talking about a title change, correct?
Yes, sir.
And these are job descriptions that were previously presented to the board for approval at the July board meeting, correct?
That one was, yes.
Okay. Okay, what's the next one?
And the other one is under pay grade 4,
Okay.
and it should be coordinator, licensed specialist in school psychology, and right now it only reads licensed specialist in school psychology.
Which line item is that under pay grade 4?
It's the
I see,
fourth
I
one
see.
to the top,
Okay, licensed specialist in school psychology, and it should read
coordinator.
coordinator. Again, these are all job descriptions.
That one was not updated, but when it was done last year, they left off the coordinator, and it wasn't brought up to our attention until now.
Okay, again, no change in
No
pay or
change.
anything like that, you're
No,
just
sir.
correcting the verbiage.
The title, yes,
Okay, the
sir.
title. Any questions on that, Mr. Mesa?
I'll ask board members, I think everybody understands the highlighted items that were up there. That's what we're voting on at this point. Okay, Dr. Lewis.
Okay, we okay? Mr. Mesa, members of the board, it is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approves the 2018-2019 district compensation plans to include the following: salary structures, teachers with a starting pay of $43,000 and a general pay increase of 2%, administrative professional, paraprofessional, and auxiliary with a general pay increase of 2%, stipends with updates from the TASB stipend market study for teachers, supplemental, academics and fine arts, athletics. Remaining schedules with no changes are the temporary substitute and extra duty and the summer school employees.
You've heard the recommendation from administration. I will entertain a motion for approval.
So move.
Mr. Contreras, seconded by Mr. Overfeld. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Yeah, can I make a comment?
Yes, Mr. Smith.
I mean, I know every board member put a lot of heart and soul into this one, right? It was a lot of debate and a lot of going back and forth. I know it's going for the right place. I mean, our number one asset is our teachers. Our number two, I say number one, number two, we got our teachers and our students, right? So I don't know. I'm not going to put one in front of the other, but it's a critical piece to have that annual increment, and well deserved by all of the staff and teachers. So.
Thank you very much. I especially want to thank the administrators that worked on all the areas of the budget, and of course we're not done with it yet, but we realized we had to compromise in some areas that we did not foresee the amount that we lost in the appraised value of the wind farm, and so we continue moving along with what we have and trying to stretch again that dollar as much as we can. But I really appreciate the fact that it was a unanimous vote, even though sometimes we don't get our ways, but I think we can understand that we can compromise in areas that we can compromise on. But the critical part is the staff and the employees that we have, teachers and everyone included, to do the best that we can with the amount of money that we can. Thank you so much. Next item that we have is item 13C. Consideration to approve the board meeting date for the purpose of adopting the budget and proposed tax rates set for August 20th, 2018. Yanakani Valdez.
Thank you, Mr. Mesa. The 2018-2019 budget is being prepared for the purpose of adopting the budget and the proposed tax rate to be set for August 20, 2018. The notice of public meeting to discuss budget and proposed tax rate will be published in the Del Rio News Herald on August 12 and on August 19th. We're only required to post it once. However, we've always posted it on both Sundays prior to our public hearing. The notice will include our rollback tax rate, and it will also include our proposed tax rate. The proposed tax rate is the tax rate of maintenance and operation, or M&O, for 1.1598. This is the tax rate that we are proposing to initiate our tax ratification election for. And in order to safeguard the district of, if the tax ratification election is not successful, we would need to maintain an INS or interest in sinking tax rate of 0.1198. So again, in order to be in compliance with tax law, tax rate law, and safeguard the district, this notice does include 2 tax rates. In total, the tax rate is higher than what we currently have, but the intent is to safeguard the district if the tax ratification election is not successful and still have an INS tax rate to pay our debt, and move forward with the tax ratification election of 1.1598. And I just want to be clear, after the tax ratification election, after the results, after we receive the results at that November board meeting, is when we issue the final tax rate to be used on the notices that will be sent out. And this is the notice. It is still being reviewed by Moat Casey. There might be a small change in the middle area here that says rate to maintain the same level of maintenance. They're reviewing all of our data, and we have been sending emails back and forth. That's the only area that might change, and it's all based on state funding calculations and and just based on state funding calculations, and they're trying to make sure that all of our numbers are in compliance and were appropriate or correctly inputted. But again, it will be posted in the newspaper on August 12th and the 19th.
Okay, great. Questions? Discussion? There being none, would you please read the recommendation?
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the date of the public hearing for the purpose of adopting the budget and the proposed tax rate be set for August 20, 2018 at 6 p.m. and approve for the proposed tax rate to be used in the publication of the notice of public meeting to discuss budget and proposed tax rate.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion for approval? Mr. Overfeld? Is there a second to the motion? Mrs. Sanders? All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next item that we have on our agenda is item 16. We will go into closed session at 7:43. We're going into closed session in regard to sections 551.71, 551.072, 551.073, 551.074, 551.076, 551.082, 551.084, and 551.087 of the Government Code, Texas Open Meetings Act. There will be discussion. Okay, the time is 8:35. We will now reconvene into open session. No action was taken in closed session. We're on item 17. Consideration to approve personnel report to include the following: new hires. Aidea Garcia.
Yes, good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. It is the recommendation of the administration to approve the following new hires: Philip Gordon, music teacher at Dr. Lonnie Green Elementary; Lee Tellier, music teacher for strings at Del Rio High School; Robert Cardenas, PE teacher at Del Rio Middle School; Teresa Garcia, 8th grade science teacher at Del Rio Middle School. Brandon Dolanty, music teacher, assistant band director at San Felipe Memorial Middle School. Diana Diaz, 3rd grade teacher at Buena Vista Elementary. Marisela Lombraña, ELA teacher at Del Rio Middle School. Natalie Owens Sanchez, science teacher at Del Rio Middle School. And Erica Valero, 5th grade teacher at Dr. Fermin Calderon.
You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion for approval?
So approved.
Mr. Contreras, seconded by Mrs. Webb. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. There being no other items on the agenda, is there a motion for adjournment? Mr. Overfelt, seconded by Mrs. Sanders. Please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, and good night, everyone.